Chapter 12. Life goes on. Kramer's trial ended in the middle of September, and what lay ahead was the hottest summer anyone could remember. Alan and Amber attended their classes in forensics, driving to and from Henry County 3 mornings a week. The construction on the CSI lab building continued as before, the sheriff seeing that the site was guarded every moment until the building was finished and ready to be occupied. Amber and Susan chose the colors and textures for the walls, tile for the floors, and ceramic tile for the areas that would require such a covering on the walls. Susan was growing larger by the day until Dr. David ordered her to stay in an air-conditioned area and to do her walking in the cool of the day. The state police continued the integration of the old Project ID fingerprint card into the state system. Plain Jane Graham began to work with James Harrington as a partner in the law firm of Harrington and Graham. She found a small furnished home and moved to Mountain View and began to experience the slower, friendlier pace in rural America. As the summer began to wane, the heat started to cool, and at the end of October, the Sheriff and Board of Commissioners scheduled an inauguration ceremony for the new CSI lab and research facility. On that day, at 9 o'clock, there was a public observance of the ribbon cutting and installation of Alan and Amber as the county CSI team. The Sheriff's Department turned out in full dress uniform. After the chairman of the Board of Commissioners spoke, Sheriff Murdoch took the stand. "Today we inaugurate the opening of the Mountain View CSI facility and name Corporal Amber Clark and Sergeant Alan Smith as our CSI team. This facility is equipped the same as the State Bureau of Investigation CSI facility, and our 2 CSI agents have been trained and are experienced in this investigative effort. Sergeant Smith, you and Corporal Clark, please, now open the CSI facility and conduct a tour for those interested in what we have." At the very front of the line was the law firm of Harrington and Graham and Drs. Susan Smith and David Phillips. Then, in November, Under Sheriff Johnson knocked on Sheriff Murdoch's office door. The sheriff looked up. "Steve, come in. What's on your mind?" Steve sat with a very concerned expression. "John, David just confirmed that I have colon cancer. It can be surgically removed, but I would be housebound for a while, then I would have to. Well, I won't be able to be a deputy anymore." John frowned. "Is David sure?" Steve replied, "Yes," and Susan confirmed the diagnosis. John asked, "Steve, what will you do?" He replied, "I'll retire. My retirement will keep us okay if we are careful. Maybe I could act as a part-time deputy desk jockey." John replied, "Yes, I would like that if you're up to it." Steve went on, "John, would you make Alan under sheriff?" The sheriff replied, "I don't know. Alan would be in line for it, but that would be a very heavy burden on one man, law enforcement, CSI, and under sheriff. Alan could do it, but I would have to break up my most effective team. I just don't know." That morning at the Sheriff's Department's daily briefing, Sheriff Murdoch announced that Steve Johnson would be retiring for health reasons. Everyone expressed dismay, but also expressed a wish for a good retirement. Then the sheriff said, "Alan, you would be in line for Steve's job, but I can't break up you and Amber. So, I decided not to designate an under-sheriff. I'm going to hire an administrative assistant to take care of all the paperwork. In case I am not here sometime, Alan, you will be acting sheriff. Therefore, Sergeant Smith, I am promoting you to the rank of captain, Corporal Clark and Corporal Pond. I am promoting you both to sergeant, and the rest of you will be promoted as the funds become available. And Steve may, when he is able, be a part-time deputy desk jockey. Well, let's get to work." Amber gave Alan a soft punch on the shoulder. "Well, Captain Smith, what now?" The smile on her face was a delight to see. "I guess you'll just have to put up with me for a while longer, partner." Alan smiled back. "Ah, we're on patrol duty, so let's go." As Amber and Alan turned onto County Road 11, Amber remarked, "I sure hope we don't find another Deborah Jean along here anywhere." The thought sent cold chills up and down their backs. As they drove along, watchfully, both couldn't shake the ominous gut reaction that came with the feeling of déjà vu. Suddenly Amber cried out, "Alan, look." What they saw was a red-stained white bundle in the bar ditch. "Oh, Alan, no, it can't be." Alan stopped the patrol car, and they got out to investigate. What they found was an old shirt, stained with what looked like raspberry juice. Amber sighed. "Oh, thank you, Lord, it's nothing but trash, and not a Deborah Jean." She laughed a nervous laugh and sagged a little as they returned to the patrol car. Alan stuffed the shirt into a bag and threw it into the back seat. "You okay, Amber?" She had a wan smile, relieved. After a while, they saw a boy climb out of the bar ditch and waved both arms frantically. Alan slammed on the brakes and slid to a stop. Amber opened her window. "Little Doug, what's the matter?" He cried, "It's my dad. I can't wake him up." Amber asked, "Where is he?" He replied, pointing at a field on the other side of the ditch, "Over there. I'll show you." They followed little Doug and found his father lying in the dirt. Amber knelt down and began to examine the man. "Call an ambulance." Alan replied, 10-4. He keyed his radio. "Dispatch. This is Unit MV03, 1052, send ambulance. County Road 11 about milepost 36. Call the White Farm and tell Linda we will take Doug to the hospital. Little Doug will ride with us." Dispatch replied, 10-4. Then another call, Unit MV03 this is Unit MV01. Take Doug and little Doug to the hospital. I'll take care of everything else. Alan replied, 10-4. About that time, Doug began to come to. "Amber? What happened?" "Oh, my head." Amber said, "Stay still, just lay there. You've had a nasty fall. It looks like you hit your head on this rock. Just lay still." They saw the ambulance stop just behind the patrol car. Their radio crackled. "Alan, where are you?" Alan replied, "Just across the bar ditch about 100 yards. Cross the ditch and get out of the weeds, and you'll see us." "Oh, yes, bring a backboard." They replied, 10-4. Soon the paramedics came to where Doug lay. "Amber, what have we got?" She replied, "Looks like he hit his head on this rock, but I don't know about his neck. Treat it like he might have a neck problem." They got Doug onto the backboard and litter and lifted him. "Doug, how much do you weigh?" Doug answered, "About 250. Doug hung over the end of the stretcher. The paramedics, Alan and Amber, grabbed a corner of the litter and took Doug to the ambulance. Alan looked at little Doug. "You ride with us. We'll follow the ambulance, okay?" Amber put her arm around little Doug. "You did good, you did good. Your family has every reason to be proud of you." The ambulance left with the patrol car right behind. 10:39, lights and siren. When they got to the hospital, two big strapping orderlies came out and took the stretcher and backboard with Doug into the emergency room. Alan, Amber, and little Doug followed. Inside they found Linda White and the sheriff. "I took Teresa and Roger out to the White Farm to take care of Linda's other kids." Alan lifted an eyebrow. "Those two to watch 4 little kids?" The sheriff replied, "Alan, they're teenagers now. They can cope, I hope." Amber hugged Linda. "Linda, he fell and hit his head on a rock. I think he'll be okay. Have a headache for a day or two, but he should be all right." Linda replied through her tears, "Oh, Amber, Doug's head is probably harder than that rock. He'll be okay." You could hear the love, fear, and hope in her voice. After a few minutes, Dr. Phillips and Doug White came into the waiting room. David said, "Linda, I know it looks bad, with that big bandage on his head, but he's okay. Just a big bump and a little cut. You can take him home. I want to see him tomorrow morning at the clinic, okay?" Linda had grabbed Doug and was holding on for dear life. She looked at the sheriff. "How will we get home?" Sheriff Murdoch replied, "Alan and Amber will take you home." Then to Alan, "Alan, would you two bring Teresa and Roger home, please?" Alan replied, 10-4. Then Alan and Amber took the Whites out to their patrol car and took them home. They picked up the 2 teens and took them home. Then back on patrol. On patrol, it started to snow, and Amber remarked, "We better get back to town. This is going to be a blizzard according to the news." Alan turned onto County Road 24 and headed to town when the radio crackled. Unit MV03 and 04, 1025, meet, Linda White. 1039, urgent, lights, and siren. Ambulance en route. Amber replied, 10-4. Alan put the pedal to the metal, well as fast as he could drive on the gravel road. He turned left on County Road 11. When they arrived at the White Farm, they saw Linda out in the snow, waving frantically. Alan and Amber jumped out of the patrol car as soon as it came to a stop. "Linda, what's the matter?" She replied, "It's Doug, he's almost blind with the pain. I called Dr. David, and he said to get him in as fast as possible." The patrol car radio crackled. Unit MV03, the ambulance can't get there in this storm. Shelter in place. Alan replied, 10-4. Amber said, "Let's get inside. I'll find out if there is anything I can do." Inside, Doug was holding his head, wailing with the pain. Amber stepped over to where he was. Alan, get David on the phone. Tell him I'll try whatever he says to ease Doug's pain. Alan called Dr. David, and he explained what was going on with the storm and that Amber was there to do whatever she could. Dr. David said, tell her that I rechecked the x-ray. Doug has a subdural hematoma on the left side just above the ear. She will have to drain the hematoma. Amber looked at Linda. I need a drill and a small drill bit. Alan, in the trunk of the car, is my bag. Would you get it, please? Alan turned and went out to get the bag. Amber said to Linda, I'm going to need a big pot of boiling water. Linda had told little Doug to get the drill and drill bits and bring them in. Amber selected a small drill bit and set it aside. Then she took a syringe out of her bag and carefully drew in liquid and gave Doug the dose. Within a few minutes, Doug was out. She took the bandage off Doug's head and asked Alan to get the drill connected to the power. Then Amber asked Linda for some alcohol in which she dropped the drill bit and let it sit there until she was ready for it. Linda brought in the water, and Amber carefully washed Doug's head. Alan, please pour some alcohol on my hands, then I will pour some on yours. Alan did as she asked. Then she asked Alan to put the bit into the drill and to carefully drill a hole in Doug's head. Alan put the drill where Amber indicated and began to drill into his skull slowly. He worked cautiously. Then, he felt the drill had gone through the bone. He removed the drill and looked at Amber. What now? She took a wad of gauze and handed it to Linda. I'm going to relieve the pressure now. Be ready to catch the blood. She inserted her syringe needle and gently pushed until the blood began to run out of the wound. Linda caught the blood, and as the flow ebbed, she began to cry. Little Doug and the other kids had been in their playroom, but they all came out and hugged their mother. Amber cleaned the wound and bandaged it. Again, now, we can relax and wait for Doug to wake up. Linda hugged Amber. Thank you. Thank you. God bless both of you. How about some coffee or tea? Alan said, with all that boiled water, tea would be quick and easy. He stood, and he and little Doug went into the kitchen. Linda, where's the tea? But little Doug showed him, and shortly they all had a cup of hot tea. Little Doug had poured out some Kool-Aid for the little ones. After a while, Doug woke. Where is everybody? Linda answered, just over at the table, dear. How are you feeling? Doug sat up. Oh, Amber, Alan, why are you here? Amber asked, Doug, how are you feeling? He drawled, I've got a headache. But I feel better than I did earlier. What happened? Linda sat next to him and explained what she knew. Then she turned to Amber, did I get it right? Amber replied, essentially, yes. Doug, you had, well, bleeding in the brain and we had to relieve the pressure. Alan drilled a hole in your head. We're in a blizzard right now, but when the county plows the roads, we'll get you into the hospital for a good checkup. He looked over at Alan, you drilled a hole in my head? Did you find anything interesting? Alan replied, I didn't find anything. But Amber drained out what was left of your brains, and Linda pickled them. They're in a jar in the refrigerator. Doug started to laugh and stopped. Oh, that hurts. Don't make me laugh again. Amber stood up. Linda, we need to get this man of yours to bed. A good night's sleep, and he will be much better. They got Doug to bed. Then the kids. Linda brought out blankets and pillows. I'm sorry, we don't have any extra beds. I guess the recliner and the sofa will have to do. She showed them where the bathroom was and invited them to bathe. Alan bowed low. You first, doctor. Then he went back into the living room to wait for Amber. The next morning, Doug and Linda came out. Mornin' Amber, Alan. Time to rise and shine. Amber sat up. Is the bathroom free? Doug replied, yes, feel free. The essentials taken care of, Amber and Alan dressed, then the phone rang. Amber answered it. Hanging up, she turned. That was the sheriff. The county has started plowing. He asked them to make a path, so we can get Doug to the clinic. Doug was putting on his galoshes and coat. Alan asked, where are you going, Doug? He answered, got to milk the cows, feed the chickens, and slop the hogs. Alan replied, got another set of galoshes I can use? Doug replied, what size are your feet? Alan said, 13s. Doug handed him a set of galoshes, and they went outside. Amber worked beside Linda, and they prepared breakfast. Linda smiled. Breakfast is the big meal of the day here. They prepared scrambled eggs, a couple of pounds of bacon, sausage patties, hash browns, hotcakes, maple syrup, lots of coffee and cold milk. When Alan and Doug returned, they sat at the table, grabbed each other's hands and thanked the Lord for the meal. After breakfast, they heard the county plow. As they looked, the plow cleared the drive and then went on. Amber said, "Doug, let's get you to the clinic." She turned to Linda, "I'm sorry, but I guess you will have to stay here." Linda smiled, "It's okay. Now I know everything is gonna be alright." She hugged and kissed her husband and saw them to the patrol car. Just as they were starting, little Doug came running out with Amber's little bag. "Hey, you want this?" Amber rolled down the window and took the bag. "Thanks a lot. See you later." As they drove toward town, Doug stretched out in the back seat and fell asleep. Driving along, Alan asked, "When did you start bringing your medical bag along?" Amber turned and answered, "Right after I found you in that bar ditch with a bullet in you. I've never felt so helpless. I was so glad Susan was with me. I decided to never be without a complete and fresh medical bag." Good thing, too, wouldn't you say? After a while, they were a few miles from town, yet, when Amber said, "You know, partner, last night was the first time I ever saw you in your underwear." Alan smiled, "Well, last night was the first time I ever saw you in your underwear. Reminds me of what that patrol sergeant at the patrol barracks said, that blonde deputy is a knockout." Amber said, "Well, his assistant got it right when she said that you were a hunk. You are a hunk, you know, bro." They delivered Doug to the clinic and drove to the sheriff's office. As they entered, they saw Sheriff Murdoch signaling for quiet. As the two came in, the sheriff began with a huge smile, "Captain Smith, at about 2 a.m. this morning I took Dr. Smith to the hospital where after a short labor, she delivered."
This chapter, chapter 12, is longer than I wanted, so I split it into 2 sections. Please continue to the second section, chapter 12-1.